No, don't come in here.
Oh, see, we just started and you started running. And I'm going to keep that in because it's funny. What's up, Noblesville? Katie's
No,
going to be super embarrassed now because people are trying to come in her room right as I started the video, and she's telling them to run away.
no, there's a dog.
Oh, it's a dog. Sorry. All right, well, here we go. I'm very excited. This is our first installment of some athlete interviews, so this should be really fun. I'm tired of just having myself talk to you guys, so I thought it'd be really cool to get some of my former swimmers on. And this one, coaches always say they don't have favorites, but this one is going to probably go down in the history books as one of my favorite athletes of all times. Our path is one of the most unique paths that you could probably have between a coach and an athlete. So I'm going to have her go into that more, but she swam for me when I was coaching at Avon, and then she ended up swimming for me when I was coaching at SwimMAC. So we've kind of been on the same path for a long time. That also means I had to tell her I was leaving a few clubs twice. I don't know if she's going to bring that up or not. She'll go through more of that story. She is one of the first swimmers that I coached from when she was, like 12? Were you 12 when I first started coaching you? Maybe 13?
I was 13.
Yeah, you were like 13. But she's one of the first age group swimmers that I coached that then went on to get a junior national cut. So it's pretty cool that in my history as a coach, she was very special for that reason, that she was one of the first and probably one of the most that I was most excited about. She's a 200 butterflyer. She also swims the 500, the 1,000, and the mile. There might be some other events she swims now that I don't know about that her coaches have, but she is currently a junior at the University of Cincinnati. So this is pretty cool. Her name is Katie Qualls. All right, I know you've probably never heard that name, but she's awesome. So Katie, you're going to go through some of your story now. So I want you to talk about how did you start in swimming? Take us through your path as an age grouper, as a senior swimmer with high school, and then as where you're at now as a college swimmer.
Oh, geez. Testing my memory. Well, like most people, have started out swim lessons, and mainly because my mom made me. I picked up a couple sports along the way, and then I don't even know how old I was when I decided to just move along with swimming. I might have been probably like 11 maybe when I dropped off like soccer and softball, started going into swimming. But even then, I wasn't even really that serious about it. I think I remember the moment I got really serious about it because the coach kind of made me mad, not you, but for you. He made me mad, and I had to prove him wrong. So I did, and that was kind of the moment that I started getting not really good, but I kind of started to realize that I could be good, and like I wanted to do it. So that happened, and then that coach left. I had to prove him wrong again, so I kept going with it. And I think that's when you came in, and then that was kind of you met me when I was like that was weird. That was crazy. I don't even know.
I think you maybe said a total of like
I was very quiet.
5 sentences for the first like few months that I was there.
Yeah.
You were very quiet, and I thought you were always mad at me.
Yeah, I get that a lot. But I'm not mad at most people. I just I don't know. New things freak me out. So like when I was getting a new coach, I was like, well, how is it going to work? How is he going to coach us? And then once it kind of got to know you a little more, it, got more comfortable, and I started to come out of my shell. I think, you're the first coach I had that I really made a lot of improvements with. Went to zones for Indiana twice. Well, I was 14 for like the one I had the majority of my swims for. I'm talking about my mile. Had crazy tempo, and then the coaches So I wasn't going to make it through with that tempo. I'm like, oh no, she's fine. And I want it, so it's fine.
Yep.
I don't know, where did I go from there? When did you leave? Freshman?
I think, was it freshman year, your freshman year?
I think it was.
I don't exactly remember, but it was pretty, it might have been like the end, like the summer of your freshman year.
Yeah, I think it.
Yeah, it definitely was. You had definitely gone through at least 1 year of high school swimming at Avon when by the time like with me there. So yeah, what was that transition from you as like an age group swimmer to senior swimming, and then maybe if you could, because you'll probably get to it at this point in your career where you kind of made a switch from swimming in Indiana as a senior swimmer and a high school swimmer to swimming in North Carolina as a senior swimmer and a high school swimmer, and talk a little bit about the differences, because most of these kids, in fact, as of right now, all these kids are listening to this are swimming in Indiana, and you have a really unique perspective of not being in Indiana for high school swimming, which other states probably think that it's crazy here for what we do it for high school swimming. So what was all that like?
Going from age group to senior swimming?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was scary at first. Just because Indiana has so many great swimmers, and I don't know. Indiana is crazy with swimming. It's comparing Indiana to North Carolina. Like, there's not really a comparison. I mean, high school swimming, it never really gets the kind of, they don't really pay attention to it much in either state, but like, you get crazy excited for high school state in Indiana, and high school state North Carolina is like, what, doesn't matter. Oh, I don't even, oh my gosh, it's bringing, I don't even know where to like keep going for that in Indiana.
How did you end up, before swimmers think you're like crazy and moved all the way across the nation to continue swimming, how did you end up in North Carolina? Because it really was like pure happenstance that you landed in the city that I was coaching in and that you started swimming for me again.
It really, so my dad got a new job. The job in Indiana didn't work out for some reason, and then he put out, a bunch of things for a new one, and he landed one in North Carolina, and then I waited about a year before I was like, I want to, be with dad again, because you weren't even in North Carolina yet when he moved there, because you were in New York. But he was, I think I went through my sophomore year in Indiana, and then I got to the summer, and then you ended up there, like the same place. I was like, well, maybe I could go for a visit. Yeah. So went to visit in July. It was just me and my dad. And then I was like, okay, Mom, let's move. I know someone there. Alex is there. Can keep swimming. But yeah, that transition was kind of hard. It was kind of hard for a little bit, just because, again, I'm a quiet person. But
yeah, and for people that don't know, like SwimMAC is
huge.
Like if you think like Carmel is one of the biggest things you've seen, SwimMAC makes Carmel look tiny. There are 1,500 competitive swimmers at SwimMAC. There are more competitive swimmers on that team than in some other states total. Like you talk about some of the real small states. So stepping into that is I mean, for me as a coach, it was like kind of terrifying, because it's a little bit like this is super weird, and I can't even imagine what that's like as a swimmer, because I was put in, when I got there, I was put in a position of writing all the training for one site for the senior kids, and I was writing training for like 250 kids, and I only was directly coaching maybe 50 of them. But there was a whole like another 125 kids that are like doing training that I they would have walked up and said hi to me, I wouldn't know their names. It was just really weird. So as an athlete, what was that like? I mean, kids move teams, but you went to a team that's like a, a machine. Like it just pumps out swimmers. I mean, how was that?
It was scary because I mean, a lot of them, Kathleen Baker. I mean, I didn't know Kathleen Baker, but she's from there, and like putting out swimmers like that, and like they're expecting, everyone else to be like the same caliber as them. Like I'm not. Like I don't even know her, and I know I'm not that fast. Um, but swimming meets with SwimMAC, when you join the North and South together, it's like a freaking inter squad meet at a meet where it's supposed to be against other teams, like some other team, some other team, So I'm like, why aren't we just competing against ourselves? But I mean, we were basically, but um, I mean, you get used to it after a little bit, and I think moving kind of helped me a little bit for college because I had to come out of my shell even more than what I had to beginning of high school in Indiana. Because I moved right before my junior year, so I mean, I was feel like I was still a little Katie Qualls. Like I was girl, still pretty tiny, I think. I mean, I don't know, but moving, I kind of had to force myself to go and make friends, and for a while that was kind of hard, but now I'm pretty comfortable going up and talking to almost anyone, especially in college. But I mean, with a team that big, you get used to competing with somebody on your good days and on your bad days. Like, I mean, you're swimming with someone like the entire practice. It doesn't matter if you're swimming fast or if it's not one of your best days training, which is kind of how it was like in college as well. There's someone always there, like pushing you and making you keep going throughout the set. It was crazy.
Yeah. Let's talk
um,
about college. You left SwimMAC. How did you end up in Cincinnati?
well, I didn't want to at first. It's like I don't want to go to Ohio. Like I don't like the state of Ohio. For some reason, I was basing it off of like two meets I had in the state of Ohio. I was like, I don't like it. Um, but my mom actually filled out a questionnaire for like so many schools. Um, but they ended up calling me. I forget when it was, but he was like, I was about ready to call you next week before I got your questionnaire. Like I was planning on contacting you anyway. I was like, what questionnaire? He didn't even tell me. But I was like, well, of course I have to accept to go on a recruiting visit because that's just how you start. Like you have to be able to take those visits. But I was terrified, but once I got that one down, I was like a little more comfortable talking to other coaches and getting visits for them. But Cincinnati was my first visit. I was really nervous, really quiet, of course, but because I guess that was my senior year. I still had a little bit of work to do, but I had gotten better. Um, and going there, I don't know, you kind of can't really explain it. You just kind of get a sense of like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Um, paying attention to what the coaches are saying, what the athletes are saying. Um, I mean, of course, you want to like the pool that you're at. I mean, it's a pretty good pool. um, but I don't know, making sure you like the campus, they have the career that you want to go or the major that you want to do your career in. Um, I don't know. And then I guess I think I kind of knew before I left that I wanted to go there because, I mean, going to the other visits that I had, I was always comparing it back to that one, which you kind of, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to compare it to the other visits that you go on. But, I mean, none of them really met that, except my last one. I think the only reason I didn't go to the school I went to my last visit on was because it was like an all girls team. And I was like, no, there's got to be some sort of pettiness that happens, right? There is on like all teams, and I was like, just girls? No.
Yeah.
But
right. So now that we've gone through kind of the what everyone would sound like is like an all happy-go-lucky, like, yeah, there were some moves in there, and that was hard here and there, but it sounds like a pretty awesome swimming career, and all the kids are like, wow, it just sounds like so much fun. But it was not all that easy. I know I saw it firsthand that it was not that easy, and you had a pretty significant injury that you had. So what did you have going on? What did you have done, and what did that do to your swimming?
oh, I think it started my senior year was no the summer before my senior year of high school. Started having some pretty significant pain in my right shoulder. Went to a couple doctors, like, oh, it's probably this or it's probably that. They thought something was torn. Like, well, let's get you started with physical therapy. So I did that for a few months. It ended up I had a couple good weeks where I wasn't in any pain. So they're like, okay, we're done with physical therapy. And then I went on spring break and I came back. And I was 4 days into training after spring break. And I was like, I shouldn't have stopped physical therapy. But I didn't go back to it because I was scared. I was like, well, I can deal with it. Like, it's totally fine. Like, I'm going into college. Like, maybe I can try to push through it. But then it started affecting me at swim meets where I couldn't compete in a couple of events. So my mom was like, all right, we need to go back to a doctor. So they're like, well, I think your best option is surgery. I'm thinking it's some sort of tendonitis in your bicep. So I went in. Well, first I had to call my coach. Like, I'm having surgery. Like, well, there's nothing we can do about that. So go ahead and do it, whatever you have to do. Which got scary because I was afraid she was going to take my scholarship away.
Yeah.
But it turned out fine. I went in, they fixed my bicep. They actually did find something torn in there, so they fixed that too. I won't go into specifics because they don't even know what that is. But that put me out I had that surgery in June, beginning of June, after my school. I hadn't even graduated yet. It was 2 days before my senior graduation. That was fun. So I was in the pool kicking for the entire summer, which was awful, but I got really good at kicking. Not that I wasn't good at kicking before, but it turned me into like a monster without a board. I can't kick with a board still, but I got into doing breaststroke, I think around 8 weeks after it, which was awful because I hate breaststroke with a passion. But then I started doing some freestyle. I think it was a week and a half before I moved to college. So I'd only gotten up to, I think it was 1,000 was the most I did before I moved. So that was really hard going into college without even really being able to prove myself. But I had to, show them that I belonged there in other ways, showing them that I could come back from that injury, and still, perform to where I was or even better. So but it took me until October or November, beginning of November, before I started finishing practices, like, and stringing them along one after the other. Um, my coach didn't want me swimming the first meet, but I insisted. I think it was our inter squad meet. I was like, no, 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 put me in. I'm ready. I'm ready. Just don't put me in too far. I can't do it yet. Okay. So I did that. I did fine. Didn't die. And then our first college meet, that was that was a lot of fun because that was my first 200 fly that I'd done since before my surgery. Um, my I remember, like, I had to do a double take on the board because I think I got second or third. I didn't win it, but I remember looking at the board and I was like, I'm supposed to be like 15 seconds slower than that. um, but I surprised my coaches as well. I mean, they didn't expect anything out of me, which I think is when I do best because then I want to prove them wrong. But after that, they're like, okay, we can count on you to get things done, show up. And I did. I had a good conference meet my freshman year. It took a lot to get there, mentally, physically. My weight coach, he was there for me, like, in every way he could. He helped me build muscle back. I mean, he limited me to where, like, no, you can't do that much weight, you're going to tear it, whatever. But it was great having that support from my coaches, and then my teammates were there for me as well, which is the most important thing, I think, is having them. But,
I mean, looking back, I mean, I think it's like really important for swimmers to hear because looking back, could you have ever fathomed being out of the water, not training for the amount of time you did, and ever having a salvageable swimming career after it?
oh, crazy. I don't know how I did that. I had to do it twice.
Yeah.
Because my left shoulder went out on me. About a year ago, I had the surgery.
Yeah.
Which one? I think that one was harder than the first one.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I think it's so important to hear because especially age groupers and high school swimmers, like you have an injury and you think like, oh, it's over. Like you just like you think there's no hope. You think taking 2 weeks out of the water is like, oh, I had 2 weeks out. I mean, it's especially like right now, like we have no idea when we're gonna be able to get back in our pool. Like you're sitting there doing the exact same thing. Like you're sitting around. I know we were talking earlier, and you were like starting to get a little worried. I don't know when we can start training again. And the reality is like, man, you went from June till October where you
yeah,
just couldn't do anything. And I think like to see that you're still a very successful swimmer and making progress, like it just goes to show like sometimes it's just part of the plan and part of the process. You just deal with it, right?
yeah.
What were you like? So when you were dealing with all, like, what were some of the, and maybe you don't remember, but like specific fears that you had going through your head when you were out like that?
Um, I was scared that I was done.
Yeah.
I was scared that I wasn't gonna be able to get back to where I was. Um, I mean, I have not been the most positive swimmer on the planet ever. I, I have serious confidence issues, which I have been working on. That's a whole nother story. But
That'll be part two, everyone.
those fears are kind of playing in my head because I'm always in my head. You know that better than anyone, probably. Talked me out of so many downward spirals. Like, thinking back on that, I'm like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Um, um, but I mean, I kind of had to remind myself that, like, I was doing the most I could. I was doing my physical therapy. I was in the pool every day doing something at least. I mean, right now it's a little hard thinking that we're not doing anything, but I mean, you just kind of have to remember, like, the little things that you're doing and not focus on I've had to like focus on what I'm doing now as opposed to like, you know, way far in the future. Like, um, just taking a step back and just realizing that you're doing the most that you can right now, which I think is important for me to remember in this moment.
Yeah.
Because I kind of started panicking a couple days ago because they're like, well, we're going to come back in April and we're going to come back in May, and now it's June. Like, I need to swim. So I don't know, just like for my shoulder, I was like, I'm doing all I can right now. So
Yeah.
it'll all come together, and it did.
Yep. All right, got rapid fire questions for you.
God,
You ready?
no.
Take a deep breath. Okay, here we go. What are your strengths as an athlete?
I'm pretty hard-headed. I like to do what I set my mind to. Um, I'm pretty mentally tough, I think, once I get going. I don't like to, give up. I hate giving up.
Yeah. All right, favorite movie?
Harry Potter.
Which one? There's like 14 of those. Which one?
Half-Blood Prince.
Okay. So what are some of the weaknesses you have as an athlete?
Well, my confidence,
Right.
which I'm working on, but yeah, I like to think very negatively, which doesn't make sense because I am pretty hard-headed, but a lot of those negative thoughts creep in a lot, especially when I'm having a bad day. But
What's your favorite food?
pizza.
Yeah.
What
are your favorite type of sets?
Oh. Shoot. I like pace sets when I'm hitting pace. I can tell you I hate sets like where the intervals decrease. But we do a set that's like 500s or 300s, and we started a pretty easy interval for like 3, and then we drop the interval like consistently. I hate those because I like to stick to one speed and keep going. So then I have to go fast the entire time, or like just drop it out of nowhere, and I hate doing that.
What is the hardest you have ever laughed at practice?
Oh God. I think the most distinct memory I have was when we were at Avon, and you were standing on the railing, like for the steps in the pool. You were just leaning against that, and Duncan decides to cannonball splash you in the pool. But I was laughing so hard because you were soaking wet. I couldn't do the set. So you decided to drop everything out of your pockets and just jump in the pool. You did that twice, actually.
Oh. I remember that time. I don't remember the second time. All right. What's your favorite memory so far in your swimming career?
Either getting my junior cut or beating Miami at our dual meet my sophomore year last year. That was fun. They beat us for like 18 years in a row, and they came in so cocky and we're like, no, you guys are going to lose. We were at our pool and like, okay, guys, it's time. Mm-hmm. That was fun. They left so sad. They're mean, okay?
All right, last one. What advice do you have for swimmers that aren't in college yet, whether it's age group swimmers, high school swimmers? What is like the biggest piece of advice you have as being what most kids at the club level would consider like an old swimmer who's been doing this for a while?
I think you kind of have to have fun with it. It's kind of hard sometimes when you're in practice and you're dying, but finding some person to laugh with, keep the mood light. That's kind of what kept me going, especially this year. Because this year's tough for me, but I think trying to have fun and like staying as tough as you can when you're having a bad day. If you're having a bad day, focus on the little things. Not your time. Don't look at the clock. That's what I found helped me the most was not worrying about the time and then having fun.
Yeah.
Kind of had to find my love for it with fun this year.
Well, that's very cool. Katie, you're a rock star. I'm excited to figure out how your senior year goes. We were just talking a little bit. We were saying, I said, you're a junior, right? Going into your senior year, the look on her face was a little bit like, oh man, I'm like a year away from adulting. Like that's the look that was on your face. But I'm glad you could do this. You're the very first athlete we've had, so I'm excited that you're the one that I get to share with the Noblesville Swim Club first. So Noblesville, I'll talk to you guys later. Katie, any last words?
I'm just here for the good times.
All right. Well, we'll see you later, Noblesville.